we welcome Vicki Ringer to Black, White, and Blue in the South. Hello, Miss Vicki.
Yes.
Hi, y'all. Good to be here.
First, we want to say thank you for making time to speak with us. You were on our to-get list forever, and I was always like, nah, she's too busy. She's too big. She won't have time for us. And then, boom, there you are.
There you are.
Not true.
Thank you for
You
making
just have
time.
to ask.
That's it. We're ready.
Well, we asked President Obama. He hasn't responded yet. So
Oh, well.
we tried. So we settled for you instead.
Now that I've done it, he'll follow up.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, you're paving the
Yes.
way.
Thank you.
But we are, I got to say from the outset, I'm a little starstruck. We're huge fans of yours, believe
Yes.
it or not.
Yes.
We've mentioned you and covered you several times on our podcast over the past 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
So you are this figure that we've spoken over Zoom in the past when we were doing our candidacies, but we've never met you in person.
Yeah.
So this is the closest that we've got. At least I haven't met you in person. Have you met her, Jamil?
I have not.
You have?
Well, we had
I
those.
met both of you in person.
Well, not those weren't really like in person.
When was that in person?
I think, Jamel, were you at the Wofford College for the
Both of us were,
Yeah,
Yeah.
we were there for the Sprat
We were.
Issues Conference.
but that was
Yeah.
that was so quick, and
yeah.
this is
and
more
Bill,
of
I've
a.
actually met you a couple of times. I think maybe at the that Blue Palmetto dinner.
Oh my God! Well, I'm 90 years old, so my memory is
You
shot.
know,
You have to
Well,
forgive
we're
me.
not going to discuss age.
Yes. Oh, it's just a treasure for us to have you here. We're a little starstruck.
We are a little
But before we
excited.
get into that, some quick facts. Vicki,
Okay.
you're from Lexington. Is that your home base?
Yes, I live in Lexington. I'm originally from a little town over near the coast called Lakeview. It has no red lights. It has no Hardee's. It has no McDonald's. It's very tiny.
Okay, so
But
that's why
it
we
was
relate
great.
so well because I'm from a little town called Ward, and we don't have any of that either. So,
Exactly.
What
the
are these
connection.
third world countries you're from that don't have McDonald's and
but
Hardee's?
do you recognize what they produce? They produce great talent. Awesome
They
diamonds
do.
come from those little places.
Well,
I
Vicki,
loved growing up in that small town.
Yeah, me too.
Things that we didn't have to worry about
Yeah,
back then.
yeah.
well, Vicki has since landed in civilization, and she is now the director for the South Carolina Public. No, she is the director for South Carolina Public Affairs for Planned Parenthood Votes SouthAtlantic. But you've had a storied career prior to then. So before we get into the Planned Parenthood votes, what have you done with your life up to that point?
Oh, wow. Well, I went to Carolina. That was the big thing. And my intention was to be a journalist. So I started out at a weekly paper in Lexington. My professor at Carolina owned it, and I was the news editor. And then I discovered I was not going to be able to pay my bills from working at a newspaper. So I went into public relations, and that took me from Conway Hospital to the Department of Revenue to the Department of Public Safety to electric co-ops of South Carolina and then Planned Parenthood. So
Wow.
most of my career has been in state government, working as either the press secretary or chief of staff, something along those lines.
You were with the Department of Revenue for 14
Yes.
years,
Wow.
sucking us
Back
dry of our money. How is that?
back in the tax commission days. So we were tax commission when I started, and then when Carol Campbell reorganized state government, we became Department of Revenue. I will say it was probably one of the best jobs
Oh,
I've ever
wow.
had, um, especially before um, governors restructuring because everybody was hired based on talent as opposed to political largesse and very in tune to doing good work for taxpayers. And it really made me feel good about myself. We told people if you get a phone call, you own it. We're not going to forward people over and over again to tell their stories and ask for help.
Oh, wow. That's
You sound a
impressive.
lot like our friend Francie Cleckley.
Yeah.
She ran for state senate last year, and she came out of the IRS and had
Yeah.
a similar viewpoint. The human face of monetary collection.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Francie lives right around the corner from me, and actually, we're pretty sure we knew each other because we did a lot of work with IRS and the tax commission together. But it is kind of fun having another tax nerd to talk to.
Well, we're going to change our subject to tax talk with Vicki
Yeah.
Ringer. Here we
Yeah.
go. Well, Vicki, I want to rewind the clock a little bit. I'm going to go back to 2023 when Jamil and I were just a fledgling podcast. And back in episode 21, we highlighted a testimony you gave at the house that I want to play a clip of right now. And let me make sure you can hear it, okay?
Thank you so much. I'm Vicki Ringer. I've not prepared any formal remarks, but I would just like to say, as so many have said before, I know I'm not going to provide new information. The makeup of the board indicates that nothing I say will matter. The fact that we have a full committee meeting tomorrow suggests the same. But this is harmful. There is so much that needs to be done for the benefit of the kids in the state. So to tell me you're protecting kids is such a falsity. It is not true. You are hurting kids. Listen to the parents. Listen to the doctors. You're dictating the practice of medicine, and there is malpractice involved in what you're prescribing. So take more time and talk to these doctors. They know what they're doing. This whole suggestion of a transgender ideology, like it's some nasty thing that's going on. As the Bells testified, as others have testified, this is not a journey anyone wants for their kids. Look at you and what you're doing to the kids. Nobody wants that for them. So listen to the people who are impacted and get out of your mind the far reaches, the polarizing comments on the far right. Listen to mainstream Americans, doctors, and parents. They know best what's right for their kids, and you tell us that every day. They know what's best. Listen to them now. Thank you.
Vicki, thank you for your testimony.
That's when we knew we were in love. That's
It
when
was.
we knew.
We watched that, and we did a 2-part episode on the transgender bill from that year, and that was one of the highlights. Because first of all, it was very short.
Mm-hmm.
You were more direct than anybody else. I mean, there were tears that we saw. There were impassioned pleas. There were goosebump testimonies, but yours went right to the gut.
Yeah.
Like you didn't sugarcoat a single word. You delivered exactly what needed to be delivered.
And I think the most important part was that you led with, I didn't prepare anything. So where you came from was historical context. You came from a place of passion, and you could relate it to facts. I love that part.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I hate what has become a wedge issue for the far right. And as I've gotten to know parents of transgender children, you just can't know these people and think that they're inflicting any harm or ideology on them. They just want their kid to live and to smile again. And that's what we got out of that hearing.
Wow.
But they had their minds made up before we ever stepped foot in that room.
The highlight for me was when you said, "Look at you."
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
who would want this harassment
No.
voluntarily, right?
No, the one that's when she said, you can look at the makeup of the board and tell that
Yeah.
that decision's already been made. That's
So
it.
Vicki, you've been to the Capitol many times to testify, and I would say probably 99% of the time it falls on deaf ears or does not lead to the outcome that you were hoping for. What motivates you to keep going? Why don't you just throw your hands up in the air and say, F it, this is impossible. Why even bother? What motivates you?
Well, I will tell you, Bill, there are times when I'm at the State House and I feel like I want to go outside and just scream because they do not listen. They're not listening to voters. They're not listening to experts. They're not listening to doctors. They are listening to that small group of primary voters. And even then, what we know about reproductive health in South Carolina is that about 80% support abortion rights in some or all cases. People who want it outlawed or illegal, it's only about 12%. But yet these people who are making the laws are listening to the 12% and not the 80%.
Yeah, I'm wondering if they are even listening to the 12%. I sometimes have to question what is the true motive behind this aggressive level of a push. And I'm not sure that it is reflective of South Carolinians at all. I think there's more of a personal vendetta. And if we look at the three individuals who co sponsored the bill that we're going to talk about, those three individuals, all men, should not have a deciding vote on what a woman does. And so this issue of, and I want us to get to, just to be able to speak about it a little bit more, this issue to Planned Parenthood's existence is more evolved than people understand. And so this is going to be a great opportunity to speak levels to what exactly can occur with Planned Parenthood's existence. But I believe the status or the attack for these three co-sponsors is to narrow down the effectiveness of such a necessary organization to make it look as if it is not healthcare. So we'll get to talk to that. I'll calm down. But yeah, I wonder what their true intent is.
Well,
There's a lot to say.
Yeah, before we get into that, Vicki, spend a couple minutes here describing your current role with Planned Parenthood Votes and how that's separate from Planned Parenthood organization itself. Let's give our listeners a little background as to what you do now and why you're here.
Good question, because that always confuses people. I actually work for two organizations. There's Planned Parenthood South Atlantic, which was the original parent organization. It's a nonprofit and it oversees our health centers in South Carolina, Columbia and Charleston. I also work for Planned Parenthood Votes South Atlantic, and that's a C4 nonprofit. It's established to do political work, advocacy, and because it's partisan, generally the donations are not tax deductible to a C4 organization. But what you will hear are a lot of people saying, if Planned Parenthood has all that money to donate to Democrats, then they don't need Medicaid money. And what they don't realize is that we're not donating tax dollars to candidates. We have raised that money from donations, and people gave us that money for this purpose, and they know they didn't get a tax write-off for it. But generally, from January to May, I'm at the State House as the lobbyist, and that's another bad word that people don't generally like, but I'm an advocate for women's health and reproductive rights and everybody's health, because you really can't separate it all out. And men also have health problems that we treat, that we specialize in. But during election years, and actually starting about now, we're 14 months out, then we get started on helping candidates win elections. As our national president always said, we didn't start as a political organization. It is because politicians have forced us into becoming one in order to protect our patients and the health care that they've come to depend on from us.
That's powerful.
How much reproductive education do you provide? And I'm talking specifically to the male members of the legislative body, because I'm thinking of the entire population of this state. That's the group that needs it the most.
Well, and I can give you a perfect example. In this new bill that we're going to be talking about, Senate Bill 323, it redefines contraceptives as only something that prevents ovulation. It cannot prevent anything else. So tell me you know nothing about how birth control works if all you're going to do is stop ovulation. Because most birth control pills have a kind of a fallback method. It may stop ovulation, but it may also thicken the cervix or make it hard for a fertilized egg to implant in the uterus. And all of that sounds really freaky and things that I didn't, honestly, when I had my child, I don't think I knew about all that stuff or didn't pay a lot of attention to it. But of course, I went to school in South Carolina where we did not have true sex education, just knowing about how our bodies work. But what the they truly do want to do is ban all birth control.
Yeah.
The far right has specifically said that birth control is an abortifacient, which means it causes an abortion. And that's just absolutely not true. Only abortion medication can cause an abortion. But things like IUDs, which may work to prevent implantation of a fertilized egg, they believe that that fertilized egg is a person, whether it has been implanted in the uterus or not. And they don't believe that IUDs should be allowed. So that's why they've changed the definition of contraceptives. But even birth control pills work by making the uterus a hostile environment for a fertilized egg.
Yeah.
Wow. Are we going to have uterus police?
Probably so. Maybe that's
That has been my question. Are we going to line folks up and do inspections? You know, that's kind of what they have in mind for transgender people too, you know?
Oh, it is. Do you recall when Tim Scott sent out that fundraising mailer about women wanting abortions up until the 12th month
12th month.
of pregnancy?
Yeah.
Yes,
that.
I do remember that. And I'm
Lord.
like, come on, Tim.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really, really bad.
But IUDs have the longest safety standards. It's about 7 to 10 years, depending on the manufacturer, so that people don't have to worry about it. And I will tell you that the demand for long-acting contraceptives has really gone up
I believe it.
under this political environment. People are afraid to get pregnant, afraid that something could happen to their health, and they will be denied access to care.
Yeah.
And we've already seen it happen. Or they'll be arrested for the outcome of their pregnancy.
I have a 29-year-old daughter,
too.
and that is something she'll come right out and say, that she is fearful. Now, she lives in New York,
Yeah.
but she is in fear of being denied based on where she's in the country. So that is an aspect to her thought considerations when she travels. You know?
Absolutely.
And she has to keep that in mind.
You know, that's
Now-
one of the things that you should not have to fear.
Right.
That is something you shouldn't have to fear. But
If I remember correctly, a couple of years back, weren't we on the cusp of having some sort of male birth control as well?
well, I was ready to talk about that.
Well,
Because
I mean-
if we're gonna,
aside from talking to vasectomies, I'm talking about a
Yes,
pill or something
yes.
natural that you can take that
Yes.
would have the same effect that men can control, like women have had to have responsibility forever.
yeah, there was some development of that, but that is as quiet as it could be. So I'm not even sure where they are on that. But yes, so when we go to talking about possibly lining people up, we can line everyone up, I think, if we're
That's
going
true.
to check.
Well, Vicki, give us the state of affairs right now before we get into any new proposed legislation. What's the status of reproductive rights in South Carolina?
Woefully inadequate. You virtually have no rights in South Carolina. They will want to scream and shout, my body, my choice, when it comes to a COVID vaccine. But then when I look at them and I say, isn't it interesting how that works? They say, well, we're not talking about that, Vicki. We're not talking about that. It is pretty dismal for women's health, particularly, because everything that, at least for most of our lives, kind of revolves around reproductive health.
It does.
We spend 30 years of our lives trying not to get pregnant, and then about 5 years of our lives trying to get pregnant. So for those 30 years, you're looking for methods of birth control. You're looking for what works good for you, and sometimes birth control doesn't work for some folks. It can cause a lot of problems. My roommate was like that. But it's just now they're trying to take away methods of birth control. Planned Parenthood provides 2 clinics in South Carolina, but people from all 46 counties come to those 2 health centers.
Wow.
About 14,000 unique patients a year. And the reason they do, honestly, is because some of the free clinics, county health departments will refer them to us for more complex problems, because Planned Parenthood has always been known as the experts in reproductive health. And we put a lot of money into research and improving methods. And Planned Parenthood helped fund the first research into the birth control pill. And I remember back, that was 1972 before it became legal for married couples to use birth control.
Wow.
1972.
And we're sliding back towards that, and
Yeah.
who knows where this backslide is going to stop. We may go all the way back to the 1600s.
Yeah, because the recommended bill, what are they? The Unborn Child Protection Act. That one is actually trying to exclude rape and incest.
All right. Well, we're really dancing around that, Bill. So let's just dive right into it.
Okay, yeah, 'cause I can't
normally
wait. I can't wait.
the legislative session is off. It's summertime. It's early fall.
Yeah.
They don't come back into session until January.
Yeah.
But they can be as busy during this off cycle or off months as they want to be. And for some reason, they want to talk about Senate Bill 323, the Unborn Child Protection Act, which takes an already very restrictive, one of the most restrictive laws in the state, and then goes the next level further, truly into bizarro land. Before we hear your opinion on this, Vicki, I want to play a clip from Adrienne Lett. You're familiar with Adrienne?
I am.
All
She's
right.
a candidate that we supported.
Yes, she was a candidate and hopefully be a candidate again, but she is very good in messaging. She has mastered the art of social media videos. I'm going to play a clip of hers where she talks about 323. And then, Vicki, you let me know if she's accurate or if she's just spewing misinformation, as I'm
Okay.
sure the opponents will say she is.
This is a non-exhaustive list of things that would be illegal in South Carolina if Senate Bill 323 were to pass and become law. First, obviously, abortion at any time and for any reason would be illegal. Second, transporting a pregnant minor from South Carolina to another state to get an abortion, illegal. Third, any medications that prevent ovulation or implantation of a fertilized egg, including some IUDs, some emergency contraceptives, and some hormonal birth control pills. 4, providing any information to a pregnant person about how to get an abortion would be illegal, as would be hosting or operating a website that includes information on how to get an abortion. And the criminal penalty for violating any section of this law is 30 years in prison if the abortion is successful, 25 years if the abortion is not successful and the fetus is birthed alive, in addition to statutory damages, injunctive relief, compensatory damages, and punitive damages.
So, did she get it right?
Nailed it.
She nailed
She
it.
did. She nailed it. And I think that section where she talked about the website and providing information to people, it's referred to as aiding and abetting.
Yeah.
And it is defies all constitutional rights, freedom of speech, freedom to travel through the states in this country. They're blocking all of that.
I mean, I'll tell you that. I mean, yes, I understand everything about this bill is horrid, but the most bizarre one to me is that state borders deal.
Yeah.
How and Texas is doing the same thing. You know, in Missouri, they're thinking of ways to make it illegal to cross a border to do something that's legal in another state. How is that possible? Pick any subject. How is that possible?
Precisely. And the way that Texas has set it up is in a bounty hunter type bill, so that the government isn't enforcing that law, but individuals are. If they find out that you have traveled to another state for an abortion, they can bring a lawsuit against you and anyone who can help you. And an ex-husband sued his wife and her best friends because they helped her travel out of state for an abortion. I think eventually he dropped those, but people are suing. They're calling the state, trying to stop people. But yet what we also know, guys, is that every time our doors are open, we will see people with Trump stickers on the back of their cars, or Republicans that we know. It's more do what I say, don't do what I do.
Exactly.
Oh,
Abortion
tell
is
me that's not the
okay
case.
for me. It's
Exactly.
just not for you.
Exactly. Exactly. And I keep saying that all of these stops that they are putting and barriers that they're putting in to reduce access will be the same to the services, will be the same services that they will navigate strategically to make sure that they and their loved ones and their friends of their loved ones gain access to those resources. So it makes me still question what is the true intent of what we're doing here. And that has yet to be verbalized. But when you start to me, when you start to dictate who can travel from one state to another state, it sends me back, way back when, to the slavery days. It does. And it reminds me of something that I've said all the time. The state, if not the government, has more respect for property than it does for people. And in this case, they are treating women in their bodies as if they belong to someone and that it is a piece of property that they're going to regulate.
You're absolutely right, Jamel. Absolutely right.
So this bill has been fast-tracked for debate. What's the date on that debate? I know you have it etched in your mind, Vicki.
It's October 1st. They're going to start at 9:30 in the morning with public testimony, and they're going to allow 30 people for the bill and 30 people against the bill. They get 2 minutes each, and that will be the morning session. Well, 2 minutes goes by extremely fast. You can hardly say your name and where you're from in that point of time. And so for people who have experienced harm from these bills, like several women that have been forced to go out of state, they had what is an exception under current law, a fatal fetal anomaly, something that they say is incompatible with life. But doctors are still scared to provide that health care to women because they can lose their license, they can be sued and lose their livelihood, they can go to jail and lose their freedom. And that's a lot to ask from a doctor. And so unless they are 99.9% sure that there is no chance of survival, they are usually going to suggest you go to another state for your peace of mind and knowing that it can get done. But it happens. We all have those experience with somebody we love who has gotten a diagnosis that you know it will not result in a happy, healthy baby.
So I know this is a horrid legislation. Vicki, you know it's horrid. Jamil, you know it's horrid. And we know that these men, all elderly men, are making this decision in this committee. That's all that this committee is made up of. But I guess the question I have is, why is it that the women, the Republican women, vote them into office knowing this is going to be the outcome? Like, to me, that's where the weakest spot is. Where is the educated Republican or conservative woman who says, yes, I want Billy Garrett to represent me on this issue? And why are they thinking along those lines? What is wrong?
Okay, so Vicki, you go and then I'm going to
It's a
tell you.
$1 million question.
Yeah.
I think I got an answer.
Like, I get it when the men feel like they need to dominate. So I kind of understand the mentality. I don't agree with it, but I understand it. But where are the women coming from on this?
Yeah, but I think they wrapped this thing in a cloak of Christianity, that every Republican woman feels that they would be doing a disservice to their belief if they were to support anything other than what Billy Garrett and the rest of them are supporting. I think this is if the women are proposing this, I believe that they're proposing this because of their view of their Christianity faith. And I believe that they are under the impression that people get abortions as birth control instead of understanding what it really is. So I think it is the fear of not really wanting to accept what reality is and being able to stand and say, you can still be a Christian and support a person's choice. So now let me deviate here. This is what infuriates me about this. For Christianity, I've read the Bible backwards and forwards. And you constantly see in there where if they're saying, well, Jesus didn't want us to do this, This is not what Jesus wanted. Throughout that entire Bible, I have not seen an example where Jesus forced any decision on any individual. What he did was gave them the opportunity, the knowledge to make the decision they felt was best for them. So I'm trying to figure out how in the Sam Hill, those people that are not Jesus feel like they get to take a choice away from an individual when they didn't give them that choice.
Well, amen, Pastor Brooks. And what time are your services on Sundays?
Stop it. Don't start.
That was great. Vicki, you were going to say?
You're exactly right, Jamil. In fact, if you look at the beliefs of most Protestant religions and many others, they do not interfere with the personal, private decisions between a woman and her doctor, her family, and her God. They believe that you cannot judge somebody for what they have to do to live their best life and protect their health. That's Presbyterians, Lutherans, the Jewish faith, Unitarian Universalists, Methodists. I think the only two groups that I'm aware of that absolutely ban abortion and want it completely done away with are the New Southern Baptists and Catholics.
And let me tell you about the Catholics, because that's where I got my sex education, was in Catholic school, taught by nuns and priests. And let me tell you, they were a load full of useful information.
I bet so.
So, Vicki, with this hearing coming up then, and I'm just going to be blunt, knowing that the testimonies people give are going to fall on deaf ears, there is not one member sitting in there that's going to be persuaded by any word anybody says. Their minds are made up, as you well know. What can we do to support or fight this? And you can't tell me write to my local legislators, because McCravey and Garrett aren't going to open up my mail, right?
No.
Come on, think about it. Are they going to be persuaded? Absolutely not. I mean, Jesus himself could come down and tell them stop it, and they're not going to stop it. So what can we do? What alternatives do we have to channel our energy into?
And bless your heart, those of you in Greenwood, because you're served by McCravey and Garrett. And they don't believe in abortion for incest victims.
Correct.
A 12-year-old child who's been raped by a family member, they don't believe that that child should be able to get an abortion, even though at 12 years old, their bodies are not ready to give birth. Mm-hmm. So it would probably require a C-section, and that would be forced upon them. But never discount how you can have an impact on legislators. They may not vote against a bill, but the best sometimes we can hope for is that they not vote on it at all. And we have heard a few Republicans say, I can't support it like it is now. It just goes too far. But keep the phone calls up, because there are legislators that, people think it just doesn't do any good to call John McCravey, and they may be right, but he still needs to know that people in his district absolutely dispute his beliefs and have their own. And I mentioned Southern Baptists a minute ago. Back before Roe v. Wade became the law of the land, Southern Baptists led the way in advocating for legal abortion because they saw so many women dying, that what we often refer to as a back alley abortion, unsafe, not healthy. And Baptists wanted to fix that. They spent a lot of money marketing and lobbying Supreme Court justices and members of Congress. So it wasn't until here comes the moral majority, and we can't really say we're for segregated schools, so we have to find something else to talk about. And that's when abortion became the new topic for the moral majority. And it was merely a way to raise money and keep people angered.
Right.
Just as Tim Scott would say, a 12-month pregnancy. Come on.
Right. Well, we are actually out of time with you for now. This was a very, very fast 30 plus minutes.
Yeah.
Jamil, do you want to throw a final question to Miss Vicki's way?
Just a statement, because
Yes.
Bill and I said when you came on, this is a topic that could go for several sessions, right? But I'm glad you pointed this out, because what people need to focus on is that there is an indirect relationship that will have a negative impact on the citizens of South Carolina if this bill is approved.
Absolutely.
Here we will continue to possibly increase the poverty rate in South Carolina. We're already struggling from an educational standpoint. The house dynamic, single parent home versus more than one income inside of a home will continue to struggle. And then the biggest issue here is the physical and the mental health impact that pushing this through and placing women and men in positions that they shouldn't be in will have a negative impact on South Carolina. So I need for people to think bigger than one word. Think about its tentacles touching every part, every member of your family member, because it does.
You're absolutely right, Jamel. And I will just throw this out because it does have a huge impact. Is South Carolina has the 7th highest maternal mortality rate and the 4th highest infant mortality rate. Both of those have increased since abortion was banned.
Wow.
And they're not saving anybody. More women are dying because they're being denied care, and more infants are born that have no chance of survival, but because of the laws, they're not able to get that care.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Vicki, we greatly appreciate all the hard work you do. And
Thank you,
even
Vicki.
when you feel like going outside and screaming, know that there are people cheering you on.
Yes.
And we're screaming with you.
Well,
How
thank
can people contribute to the efforts that you're underway? I'm sure with the Medicaid cuts and other rules coming down, the financial impact's drastic. So I can tell you Planned Parenthood's on my Christmas donation list.
Yeah.
At the end of every year, there's always an automatic check coming from me that way. How can people help?
Thank you. Go to ppsat.org, Planned Parenthood South Atlantic.
And donate
.org.
million, 2 million at a time, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And Medicaid has absolutely hurt, but not by as much as people would believe. They think we're getting rich off Medicaid. We are not.
No, all it's doing, from what I understand, is, and this was a clip that we played of you. You said it's really just cutting off services to the poor that needed the Medicaid to begin with.
Yeah.
All right. So that's all you're hurting. There are still people of financial means that are getting the services
Correct.
that they need. It's just now the poor, and it's just part of the conservative war on poor.
Yeah.
It carries on.
Yes. One legislator said, or I think it was a national member of Congress, that we used to wage war on poverty. Now we wage war on poor people. And that's so true.
There's a T-shirt.
There it is.
There it is. All right. Thank you, Vicki. We
Thank you,
appreciate you
Vicki.
so much.
Yeah.
Let's
Thank you
do
for
this
joining
again.
us.
We will.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank y'all.